Welcome to the review of Tokyo Ghoul Season 2. Now onto the episodes. New surge begins with members of the CCG preparing to fight the One-Eyed Owl. Hide watches the raid. Toka and Ayato fight. Kaneki saves Toka. Kaneki and Ayato fight. The group's flee as the building starts to collapse. Kaneki informs Toka that he is joining Aogiri. New surge ends with Kaneki leaving with Aogiri. Dancing Flowers begins with Arima remembering fighting the owl with Shinohara and Mado. The CCG looks into Aogiri and Kaneki. Toka studies to get into Kami. The CCG plans to take out the owl and Aogiri. Amon meets Mado's daughter Akira. Akira becomes Amon's new partner. Amon's branch looks into the 20th ward. Onteku reopens. Dancing Flowers ends with Aogiri heading out. Hangman begins with Aogiri breaking out Jason's underling Naki. Hinami goes to Sen's book signing. Toka gets a tour of Kami from Nishiki. Toka talks to Hide about Kaneki. Hide talks to a ghoul investigator named Takizawa. Juzo goes with Shinohara to get a quinque made from Jason's Kagune. Shu joins Banjo to learn more about Kaneki. Hangman ends with the CCG looking more into Kaneki. Deeper Layers begins with Amon and Akira arriving at the ghoul prison Cochlea. Amon visits with a ghoul named Donato. Aogiri arrives at Cochlea and releases the prisoners. Juzo and Shinohara arrive at Cochlea. Akira fights Naki. Kaneki fights a ghoul named Sachi. Juzo meets with two ghouls named Nashiro and Corona. Ayato fights Shinohara. A ghoul named Edo stops Sachi from attacking Kaneki. Deeper Layers ends with Kaneki losing his cool. Rift begins with Juzo fighting Nashiro and Corona. Ayato and Shinohara continue to fight. Nashiro and Corona flee. A ghoul investigator named Hoji is confronted by a ghoul named Tatara. Shinohara defeats Ayato. Kaneki fights Shinohara. Amon confronts Kaneki. Rift ends with the One-Eyed Owl arriving and taking Kaneki and Ayato. Thousand Paths begins with Juzo remembering meeting Shinohara. Juzo and Shinohara hang out. Toka studies. Amon, Akira and Takizawa hang out. Amon and Akira talk. Amon and Akira hang out. Thousand Paths ends with the CCG making a team to take down the owl and Aogiri. Permeation begins with Hinami talking to Nishiki. Shu talks to Yoshimura about Kaneki. Hinami talks to Shu. Hinami talks to Sen. Sen talks to Juzo and Shinohara. Kaneki visits Onteku. Toka talks to Kaneki. Toka attacks Kaneki. Permeation ends with Shinohara and Juzo visiting Onteku. Old Nines begins with Yoshimura telling Kaneki a story. Shinohara talks to Marude. Renji talks to Yoshimura. Toka and Hinami pack their things. Renji, Toka and Hinami leave Onteku. Shinohara visits Onteku. Two workers Irami and Enji destroy evidence of Onteku. Old Nines ends with the CCG preparing to raid Onteku. City in Waiting begins with the CCG investigators writing a note before facing the owl. Amon and Akira talk about Mado. The CCG arrive at the 20th ward. The CCG arrive at Onteku. Irami and Enji fight the CCG. The owl confronts the CCG. Toka leaves to Onteku. Kaneki and Nishiki talk. Shu confronts Kaneki. Kaneki fights Shu. The CCG fights the owl. City in Waiting ends with Kaneki planning to help out. Last Rain begins with the groups continuing to fight. Kaneki saves Irami. Kaneki fights the CCG. The CCG defeats the owl. Amon confronts Kaneki. Last Rain ends with the One-Eyed Owl appearing. Deluge of Flowers begins with Shinohara getting attacked by the One-Eyed Owl. Aogiri fights the CCG. Juzo fights the One-Eyed Owl. Kaneki and Amon fight. Takizawa gets attacked. Kaneki defeats Amon. Arima arrives to fight the One-Eyed Owl. Kaneki arrives at Onteku. Kaneki meets with Hide. Deluge of Flowers ends with Yoshimura meeting Ito. Ken begins with Kaneki and Hide talking. Onteku gets set on fire. Toka watches Onteku burn. Kaneki leaves Onteku with Hide. Kaneki brings Hide to the CCG. Kaneki confronts Arima. Ken ends with Toka reopening Onteku. That was Tokyo Ghoul Season 2. Now onto my final thoughts. Starting with the good, the characters all played a part and the story throughout the season was good. The only thing I would consider bad was the pace since most parts were rushed. Overall I would give it a 7 out of 10.